Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen across our beautiful country of Canada, our friends around the world in the known and unknown universe. Welcome back to your favorite Angry Canadian on the 31st day of January 2024. Oh, what a day it is. I get asked a question in the comments section on one of my videos. Why are you angry? To which my response is, why isn't everyone else angry? Even if it's not 100%, because, there's people that don't know any better, but why aren't, 60, 70% of the people angry and demanding change now?
There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. And she's buying a stairway to heaven.
Oh, I need a bit of music, because if you've seen my videos, a few videos back, I was talking about an appointment at the Kelowna Hospital for a colonoscopy, and I tell you, I didn't wear a mask, and because of that, the whole thing blew up. I blew up. Well, that's it. But today, this morning, even before 9, I got called and they set up another appointment. Ooh, isn't that special? And I'm not going to change anything. I'm not going to wear a mask. The only thing that's going to be different is I'm bringing my GoPro with me. So we'll see if I can get a video out of that. Now, what is happening with Chrystia Freeland? Well, did you know, this is breaking news, she's got a twin sister. Holy shit, and her twin sister is also in politics. She's also Deputy Prime Minister, Finance Minister. She's on the Board of Trustees of the World Economic Forum. Because, if you listen to Chrystia Freeland, she always says, we. Maybe she's got to go take a piss. We.
So we are aware of the court decision. We have discussed it with the Prime Minister, with cabinet colleagues, with senior federal government officials and experts. We respect very much Canada's independent judiciary. However, we do not agree with this decision, and respectfully, we will be appealing it. I would just like to take a moment to remind Canadians of how serious the situation was in our country when we took that decision. The public safety of Canadians was under threat. Our national security, which includes our national economic security, was under threat.
Told you! Did you count how many times she said we in that little blurb? And you got to think about it, that who is this we? We. Is it the Liberal Party? Is that what they represent? It's the Liberal we, and then you, the rest of the Canadians, you're scum. Oh, hell yeah, you know, you supported these truckers. I mean, they're working people. You gotta look to the experts with the education and the diplomas. The experts know everything. That's why year after year, our world is getting better and better. I mean, man, you gotta rejoice. We gotta put more experts in power. Imagine, expert and politician.
Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you, guys.
It was a hard decision to take. We took it very seriously after a lot of hard work, after a lot of careful deliberation. We were convinced at the time, I was convinced at the time, it was the right thing to do. It was the necessary thing to do. I remain, and we remain, convinced of that. And I'll now turn it over to my colleague, the Minister of Justice, and then we'll hear from my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety. Arif, over to you.
Thank you, Christia. Just to build on what Minister Freeland was mentioning, the court decision, we've received the judgment. We've done a preliminary review of the judgment. The judgment finds, in certain respects, that the decisions of the government were valid and were within constitutional parameters. In other respects, it finds it was not. Upon reviewing that decision, we obviously reiterate the respect for the judicial process that Mr. Freeland has just mentioned, but a fundamental aspect of the judicial process is also proceeding on an appeal. And after that consultation with the Prime Minister, with Cabinet colleagues, we've taken the decision that we will be proceeding on an appeal, as is within our rights within the judicial system.
So we are meeting at the battle, the same ground where you poured out. You are doing something greater. It is coming, it is now. So here we are in the Northlands, So the seeds that have been planted in the soil of this land.
So just to add to what my colleague said, I think it's important to remember the context almost 2 years ago today, those weeks in late January and February 2 years ago, the public safety and the national security context. I was in Ottawa during those weeks, as were my colleagues. I participated in the cabinet discussions. We were updated by senior officials about the risks of copycat incidents at other border crossings. I spoke to premiers from British Columbia to Nova Scotia about risks to their community safety. We saw border crossings and the damage to the Canadian economy, thousands of jobs put at risk. We spoke with the Premier of Ontario and the Government of Ontario that supported the invocation of the Emergencies Act 2 years ago. I think that's an important moment. I think it's also important to consider the government was given information with respect to the disruption at the border crossing in Coutts, Alberta. It's not banal when the security services tell you that they found 2 pipe bombs and 36,000 rounds of munition and ended up laying criminal charges as serious as conspiracy to commit murder and assaulting peace officers. So the context is important. I think it's also important to note that the House of Commons ratified the decision to invoke. But as my colleague said, the judicial system also includes appeal mechanisms, and the government's made that decision. But I certainly, as a minister who participated in those discussions and who spoke to premiers across the country, am very satisfied that we made a reasonable decision, and will now let the appeal courts consider the filings from my colleagues.
The Liberal politicians are proving themselves that they are dumb or blind, or dumb and blind, because they couldn't see the Canadian people rising up for freedom. Freedom, that's the proudest I've ever been of Canada and Canadian actions. Thousands all along the roads. I could say maybe 10,000 or whatever. And the people that stayed home and supported their action, seeing what is being done, well, it's going to be time for part 2. Let's call it a redo, or Freedom Convoy 2.0.
A defiant convoy thundered through Lethbridge last weekend, marking the 2nd anniversary of the Coutts blockade. This commemoration convoy was a stark warning to Justin Trudeau that mass civil disobedience looms if he persists in his totalitarian attacks on charter rights. Make no mistake, Trudeau was a power-mad dictator who crushed the peaceful Freedom Convoy because it exposed his authoritarian ambitions. He violated every democratic principle by invoking the Emergencies Act to suppress dissent. Even after the courts ruled his actions illegal, Trudeau stubbornly refuses to admit wrongdoing or stop trampling civil liberties. Why? Because his true goal is to extinguish the Charter and Constitution to cement his repressive rule over Canada. The brave Freedom Convoy truckers were the only ones with courage to stand up to Trudeau's burgeoning totalitarianism. That's why he viciously turned the entire state against them. But the spirit of resistance lives on. This weekend's convoy proves Canadians are ready to rise up with mass civil disobedience if Trudeau keeps attacking their freedoms. So take warning, Mr. Prime Minister, the people are awakening to your despotic intentions. Abandon your assaults on liberty now or face nationwide protests that could drive you from power. Your dictatorship is living on borrowed time. Welcome back to Street Politics Canada. A strong convoy shook the ground as it passed the Lethbridge Remand Centre, commemorating the 2nd anniversary of the Coutts blockade. 2 years ago, a defiant convoy of trucks roared out of every corner of this vast country bound for our nation's capital. From Vancouver Island to Nova Scotia, brave drivers steered their rigs toward Ottawa, united in opposition to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's escalating tyranny. These peaceful protesters vowed to represent millions of silenced Canadians who could no longer accept unjustified restrictions stolen from the pandemic playbook of despots and dictators. This Freedom Convoy was a righteous uprising against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's repeated violations of civil liberties through draconian pandemic measures. Though the convoy was ultimately dispersed, the spirit of resistance it embodied could never be extinguished. This past weekend, Freedom Convoy supporters commemorated the second anniversary of the Couts border blockade that formed a critical part of the original protest. Demonstrators retraced the route from Lethbridge to Couts to relive the convoy's stand against tyranny. This memorial convoy carries a vital message: dissent lives on in the face of Trudeau's authoritarianism. The convoy was also raising awareness and funds for 4 men still facing serious charges from the Couts blockade: Chris Lezak, Tony Oleanick, Chris Carber, and Jerry Morin. These defenders of freedom have already languished over 700 days in prison since their arrests, denied bail despite no proven crimes. Meanwhile, violent offenders walk free every day in this country. This anniversary convoy brought renewed scrutiny to their plight, signaling that these alleged political prisoners will not be forgotten. Come what may, the torch of liberty they carried will be taken up by fellow citizens. Their sacrifice poignantly demonstrates the lengths Trudeau will go to crush peaceful dissent. But such oppression only enlarges resistance. It is evident these prosecutions aim to make examples out of peaceful demonstrators in order to deter future mass mobilizations against state authority. The drawn-out proceedings also allow the government to keep up the pretense that the convoy represented dangerous criminality rather than legitimate civil disobedience. If Trudeau was earnest about reconciliation, all charges would have been dropped following the court's rebuke. But the persistent judicial harassment makes clear this is political punishment for daring to directly confront the government's unjustified restrictions. It is an attempt to discourage others from following the convoy's model of grassroots resistance. When the legal system is weaponized to crush dissent, democracy is undermined. These prosecutions must be recognized as the vindictive attacks on charter freedoms that they are. The Couts blockade will be forever remembered as a watershed moment when brave Canadians put their bodies on the line to oppose oppression. Trudeau violated every notion of decency and democracy by invoking the Emergencies Act to crush peaceful opposition to his restrictions. Yet still, the Prime Minister refused to admit error or drop charges against those he persecuted. Last Tuesday's court ruling proved beyond doubt that the Freedom Convoy was right all along. Their resistance was legally and morally justified. The ruling confirmed Trudeau acted unlawfully by invoking emergency powers without proper cause. He ran roughshod over the charter to subdue an entirely peaceful protest movement whose only crime was vocally opposing his transgressions against liberty. This should have been a time for national reflection and reconciliation after the court's vindication of charter rights. Yet still, Trudeau obstinately refuses to take responsibility or cease his vindictive targeting of convoy participants to persistent charges. His suppression of dissent continues even now. The commemorative convoy from Lethbridge to Couts stands against Trudeau's ongoing contempt for civil liberties. It loudly proclaims that dissent can never be stifled as long as the taste for freedom lives on. The current of rebellion still churns beneath the surface, ready to rise again if our rights remain under assault. As the convoy's trucks proudly flew the maple leaf, it became clear this movement belongs to all Canadians who cherish democracy. This was not some extremist fringe, but ordinary citizens occupying the nation's great moderate center. Hard-working, salt-of-the-earth truckers took up the burden of defending charter freedoms for all. The turnout and passion witnessed this weekend make one thing apparent: the embers have not died. The people are ready to revive province-wide civil disobedience if Trudeau continues down the authoritarian path. The time has come for him to reap what he has sown through dividing Canadians and trampling charter rights. If Trudeau continues undermining freedoms of mobility, assembly, speech, and conscience, he may face calls to resign or an election fought solely on his record of oppression. Canadians issue a stern warning. If Trudeau continues his slide into authoritarianism by disregarding charter rights, the Freedom Convoy could metastasize into a broader mass protest movement. The Prime Minister is playing with fire by denying Canadians their basic liberties. If he persists in suppressing dissent and overriding civil liberties, he risks igniting nationwide civil disobedience on a scale not yet seen. His declaration of war against peaceful anti-mandate protesters will not soon be forgotten or forgiven without contrition. Canadians have long memories. They recall who stood with the people during the convoy and who stood against them. Conservative leaders clearly understand public sentiment continues to side with the truckers. We cannot keep looking to failed institutions like the police and courts to safeguard our liberties. Sometimes the people themselves must bring the system to heel through mass civil disobedience. Similarly, a convoy of activists calling themselves the American Freedom Riders departed this week from Kansas City, Missouri, to protest the influx of undocumented immigrants entering the United States. Dozens joined the grassroots convoy, blasting the Biden administration for reckless open border policies and lack of action on the immigration crisis. As the convoy of trucks, cars, and motorcycles departed, organizers urged nonviolent protests, though some participants waved flags supporting the January 6 Capitol rioters. The convoy plans rallies this week in cities along the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas, Arizona, and California. They described the trip as a peaceful show forced to take our border back. It comes as over 2 million migrants entered the U.S. illegally last year, with thousands apprehended daily in places like El Paso and Yuma. The commemorative convoy was a timely reminder that dissent lives on and will someday make its voice heard again. Our freedoms have been degraded for too long under successive governments that ruled by fear and coercion. Canadians are awakening to the shame of the system that demands compliance instead of consent. On this solemn anniversary, we recommit to achieving the convoy's great unfinished business, permanently enshrining charter freedoms beyond the grasp of any politician. The black tyranny of emergency powers must be dissolved for all time. No leader must ever again be permitted to place himself above the law. Mr. Trudeau still arrogantly believes he can decry charter rights as privileges, but the people are rising to prove rights belong inalienably to citizens, not governments. The Prime Minister serves at the leisure of the people, and you would do well to remember it. No matter how long injustice persists, resistance will outlast it in the end. This past weekend's commemoration proved the courageous legacy of the Freedom Convoy lives on. Though the movement's trucks have long since driven into legend, its spirit perseveres in the hearts of all who love liberty. And that spirit demands nothing short of the full restoration of the freedoms Canadians have lost during 2 years of creeping totalitarianism. The people have begun awakening to their own power. Another mass uprising looms if Trudeau continues attacking charter rights and freedoms. Mr. Prime Minister, for your own sake and that of Canada, change course now before the people call you to account. Redeem yourself by honoring the convoy's cause of liberty for all. Well, that's all for now. How far will Trudeau go to silence dissent and consolidate power? What additional authoritarian measures will he impose to serve his political agenda? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave a like for this video. Your support helps us continue our work. You can also follow us on Twitter, where we post stuff we can't post on YouTube. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks again for your support, and I will see you in the next one.